You're listening to The Jake Asman Show on the SportsMap Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
We are now representing 12 women, and we will file the remaining cases, the additional 5 cases, in due course as we do our due diligence. You should also know that we've also spoken to more than 10 additional women. So more than 22 women that we've spoken to who have reported conduct similar to that laid out in our public filings.
And that was Tony Busby, the plaintiff attorney, in his news conference on Friday. You heard him say there on Friday that more lawsuits were coming. Well, we are now up to 14 civil cases that have been filed against Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson through Monday that accuse him of a range of actions during massage appointments over the past year. It ranges from refusing to cover his genitals to forced oral sex. Watson originally denied the allegation that was made against him at the very beginning of all this, about a week ago, called the accusations against him baseless. This was before 13 additional lawsuits were filed now against him. And if you go on ESPN.com, they put together a story that basically puts together a timeline of each incident, when it happened, and the details of what's alleged. And it just, to put it bluntly, it's disturbing. It's not good. It's of course alleged behavior, and Watson to this point has denied wrongdoing, and he deserves due process. But I'm sorry, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there is a lot of damning things that Deshaun Watson is accused of here. And when you look at where things stand right now, everything Tony Busby said in that news conference has played out so far. And what's really troubling is that if you look at the timeline of some of these allegations, one of the lawsuits alleges that Deshaun Watson sexually assaulted someone on March 3rd of this month, a month after Busby first contacted Deshaun Watson's camp, Deshaun Watson's agent. In hindsight, you know what Deshaun Watson and his people should have done? Settled out of court before this all became what it is. Because think about it. Had Deshaun settled, out of court, paid off, the alleged victim, then none of this is happening right now. Instead, Watson basically doubled down, said the accusations were baseless, and then, to me, that's like challenging all these other women to come out and come forward if they have something to say, if they have a story to come forward with. Once 1 or 2 people come forward, it makes it easier for anyone else that's been mistreated allegedly by Deshaun to come forward as well. So one of the big mistakes Deshaun made was putting out the initial statement in the first place, because it basically incentivized all these women to come forward, and now Tony Busby, the plaintiff attorney, is representing all of them. And once again, Watson has denied the initial allegation against him, but he hasn't said anything since the following 13 lawsuits have now been filed. And his attorney, Rusty Harding, said that he was supposed to speak this week. They were going to put out a statement. They were going to talk to the media. That hasn't happened yet, so we shall see. But I mentioned that Deshaun Watson could have settled out of court. Listen to Tony Busby from Friday when breaking down some of the allegations against Deshaun and the timeline of events as this all has transpired.
We wanted to resolve this matter without a lawsuit, without any publicity. We knew that once we filed a lawsuit, Texas, of course, has an open courts provision in the Constitution, so all lawsuits are public, and we wanted to avoid that. What we received instead of cooperation with Mr. Watson's agent was dismissive behavior and, frankly, incredible arrogance. Even after we had discussions with Mr. Watson's lawyer at the time, before he hired Rusty Hardin, one of the clients that we represent, even after we had had correspondence and after we had talked to Mr. Watson's lawyer, he did it again. I mean, this conduct happened as recently as this month.
I mean, that's all you need to know. Basically, you challenged all these people to come forward, and this all could have been settled out of court in hindsight. And I bet you Deshaun Watson, deep down inside, probably thinks, you know what, I wish we could have just settled out of court. He got bad advice from his camp. That's how I look at it. And we'll see when more information comes out. But this is really, really bad stuff that Deshaun Watson's facing. And forget the idea that, he's playing football anytime soon. See, I think what's happening here is we're headed towards Deshaun Watson being placed on the commissioner's exempt list, where he'll be paid to basically go away while this is, handled through litigation. There's not a single team that could trade for Deshaun Watson right now. If Deshaun Watson's playing football in 2021, he's either playing for the Texans or he's not playing at all. There's not a single team in the NFL that would be willing to trade away big-time assets to acquire a quarterback that they have no idea if he's going to be able to play or not. And this also has to be taken into account as well. We don't know if there's going to be criminal charges filed against Deshaun Watson. I mean, we're up to 14 lawsuits. How many until, the Houston Police Department gets involved? So there's a lot of unknown there as well. Go on ESPN.com and look at the summary of alleged behavior and the timeline, including one from earlier this month. Where there's smoke, there's fire here. Maybe a couple of them are exaggerating the truth. Maybe a couple of them are stretching things, but it's tough to discredit 14 lawsuits. And there could be as many as 22, I believe Busby said. So forget the idea of him playing football anytime soon. The NFL is going to have an issue here because they have previously suspended players like Ben Roethlisberger and Ezekiel Elliott, and there were no criminal charges filed then. They famously suspended Tom Brady for 4 games for Deflategate. Like, at the minimum, we're talking about a long suspension here for Deshaun Watson. There's not a single team that's going to trade away, let's say, 3 first-round picks for a quarterback that they don't know when he's going to play next. Like it or not, the Texans are stuck with Deshaun Watson. There is no chance in hell they're going to take 10 cents on the dollar for their 25-year-old quarterback at this point. And I feel kind of, greedy or, sleazy, I guess is the word, even talking about like trade scenarios with Deshaun, because what he's alleged of doing is very serious. And once again, there could be criminal charges that are coming here. We don't know. But forget the idea from a football standpoint that he's getting traded. There is not a single team on the planet that's trading away 3 first-round picks for Deshaun. And think about this. The Texans were already going to play hardball with him. They said they were not going to trade him. And I believed them when they said it. I continue to check in with people over there that say the stance has not changed. This is before all the lawsuits. Now? Why would they trade him now? And then someone on the phone to me last night was like, what if they just cut him? Because now they wouldn't have to pay him. They'd be able to avoid his contract. What would that do for them? So someone else could just pick him up and eventually he plays for them? Deshaun Watson's either playing for the Texans next year in some capacity, maybe only 8 games, let's say if he gets a half-season suspension, or he's not playing at all. And honestly, if you're Deshaun Watson, what the best thing to do would be? Show up. So at least you can get your money. Because if he doesn't show up, then the Texans don't have to pay him, and then that saves the NFL from even having to put him on that commissioner's exempt list, where he would still be paid, oh, by the way. So there's not a single team that's trading for Deshaun Watson right now. You think the Jets are offering 3 1s? You think Carolina's offering 3 1s and Christian McCaffrey? You think the Dolphins are trading 2 first-round picks? He's stuck. He's got bigger issues than his trade request, that's for sure. Way bigger issues. 14 civil cases and counting, including one that's alleging sexual assault from this month. And there's a pattern here. And it is going to be very, very difficult, I'd imagine. I'm not a lawyer. It's going to be a very difficult for Rusty Hardin to try and discredit all these witnesses. I mean, Rusty Hardin's as good as any attorney, right? I don't know how you defend this many people coming forward. Now, let me get to something that is just infuriating to hear being thrown out there by people who just lack in education. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. The idea that the Texans are behind this somehow, that this is like a giant conspiracy theory to like make Deshaun look bad because he wanted out of Houston in the first place, is asinine. I mean, how stupid are we, people? Anyone that thinks the Texans are conspiring against Deshaun Watson's an idiot. Of course, when the first lawsuit came out, the timing seemed fishy. But we're talking about 14 that have been filed. Anyone involved in such a thing, if it was ever discovered, would face criminal charges in their, on their own right. Cal McNair would have to sell the franchise if he was found to have been involved in this. And why would the Texans, let's play along for a moment here. Why would the Texans, if they were conspiring to make Deshaun look bad, why would they want to make their most valuable asset totally get destroyed publicly, destroying any trade value? See, if they were going to have to trade Deshaun, at least you could sell the fan base on, we're going to get a boatload of assets for him. Well, you can't sell another fan base or another NFL team on giving you a boatload of assets for Deshaun right now, not when he's facing 14 civil cases and counting for alleged sexual assault. So no, the Texans are not conspiring against Deshaun Watson. I feel stupid even having to say that, but it's ridiculous. The timing, of course, is wild. And I'll say what I said the other day. We're watching like a real life, 30 for 30, if you will, play out. Right? We're watching a real life, like landmark NFL sports moment play out with Deshaun Watson and the Texans. Forget the criminal charges or the civil cases he's facing. Just the fact that he's 25 years old, top 5 quarterback in the sport, and he wanted out in the first place. That's never happened for a player of his caliber. Someone this good wants a trade request. But now you factor in 14 plus civil suits on top of all this, and this is like an unprecedented story in league history. Like O.J. Simpson was unprecedented. Tiger Woods was unprecedented. Like the rise and fall of an athlete that was so beloved. Like we're seeing it play out. Like this is the 30 for 30 in real time. It's a crazy story with twists and turns, and nobody exactly knows where it's going. But I'll tell you what's going to happen, at least over the next, let's say, 37 days when the NFL draft is. Deshaun Watson is remaining in Texas. It was probably more likely than not before all this he wasn't getting traded because the Texans were willing to dig in and not move. But now, how could you trade him when his value is 30 cents on the dollar? Maybe it's even less than that. Maybe it's 10 cents on the dollar. It's a crazy situation that will not be resolved by the NFL draft. So if the Texans were set on not trading him before, they're certainly not going to trade him now when his value has been totally tanked. So these are serious allegations, and Deshaun deserves due process and all that. But, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I look forward to seeing what his side tries to use as their defense, what they say. Because, maybe you could argue some of these stories don't add up. Some of these women have come forward and they're looking to take advantage of a famous person, all the things that usually, get said when a type of story like this emerges. But 14 civil cases, criminal charges still coming, potentially. This story just continues to get more insane by the day. 800-224-2004 is the number if you want to weigh in and get involved. A lot still to cover. We'll come back. We'll talk more about this. I see a lot of people have tweeted at me, at Jake Asman, weighing in on this story. We'll get to all the round of 32 games from yesterday. The Sweet 16 is set. And coming up at 40 past the hour, Stephanie Stradley from the Houston Chronicle covers the Texans and has a law degree will join us. We'll get the latest on Deshaun Watson from her perspective. Stay tuned. We're coming right back. Jake Asman with you, here for you on a Tuesday morning. This is the Jake Asman Show on Sports Map Radio.